Breaking developments involving North Korea. Tonight, they have launched an intercontinental ballistic missile, and this evening, experts now saying that this missile went higher and further than before. Could this kind of missile now reach cities on the East Coast, possibly New York or D.C.?
The North Korean missile traveled farther than any missile they have ever launched. The ICBM airborne for close to 45 minutes before splashing down in the Sea of Japan.
It looks like this thing can go about 10,000 kilometers. That means from North Korea they could hit most of the United States, so they finally done it.
Meaning not just Hawaii, where they are already putting out safety warnings, but Seattle, Los Angeles, and possibly even Washington, D.C. and New York. Like the missile launched on July 4th, this ICBM was blasted straight into space, but the North can angle the missile trajectory for distance instead of altitude. And today's missile went higher and flew longer than the July 4th test, which is why experts fear it could potentially hit the mainland.
Like horseshoes and hand grenades, getting close is all that's needed when you're dealing with nuclear weapons.
The U.S. and South Korea responded tonight by conducting their own missile exercises, something they did after the July 4th test, to little effect.
U.S. President Donald Trump condemned North Korea's latest missile launch on Friday, warning that such a reckless and dangerous action will deepen its isolation.
With crippling sanctions lobbied against North Korea and now another bill on the way, you might be wondering how a country largely ostracized from the rest of the world makes money. The Associated Press has come up with a list of countries who have done business with the Hermit Kingdom. Unsurprisingly, at the top of the list, China. It's one of the largest employers of North Korean laborers and even hosts several North Korean restaurants. North Korea also sends laborers to several African and Middle Eastern countries. Russia is a large employer for such workers, many in construction and timber. If you haven't noticed, North Korea has a thing for constructing large statues of its dear leader. Several African countries with a similar sense for flair also employ them to make large monuments. They and several Middle Eastern countries have also ordered arms, tanks, and missile systems from them. Syria, too, has also ordered military equipment from North Korea before. Nigeria has even hosted North Korean doctors, with 3 of them killed in a 2013 attack. Interestingly, the UN is now investigating a shipment of Scud missile parts to Egypt, an ally of the US.
Iranian state media says the country has successfully launched a rocket into space. Iran has been slowly building its space program since 2003. The rocket launched Thursday is reportedly capable of carrying a satellite into orbit. The move is concerning to some. A U.S. National Air and Space Intelligence Center report warns the space program could just be a test bed for intercontinental ballistic missile technologies. According to the United States Institute of Peace, the 2 programs do run on similar technology. While the space program doesn't violate the 2015 nuclear deal made between the U.S. and Iran, some feel it violates the spirit of the deal. And a U.S. State Department spokeswoman says the launch does violate a United Nations Security Council resolution. This launch comes 2 days after the U.S. House of Representatives voted to approve new sanctions against Iran. The New York Times reports this launch was in response to that vote.
Russia's newly appointed envoy to the UN, Vasily Nebensia, says the EU stands to lose out from the anti-Russia sanctions.
Ironically, the EU, together with the US, implemented illegal sanctions against Russia, and now it could be a victim of those restrictions as the result of the sanctions. This situation can be described as, "we told you so."
And from the very start, his views on Russia-US relations haven't exactly been filled with positivity.
Obviously, the situation and our bilateral relations don't create optimism concerning our cooperation. We are polite and patient, as our president said yesterday. But anyone can lose patience. We had to take these measures. We faced total, unprecedented, baseless, and illegal sanctions. We repeatedly warned our American colleagues that our patience would run thin one day.
Fury from Russia. In retaliation against Congress's sanctions bill, the Kremlin seizing 2 U.S. properties and ordering a reduction in American embassy staff in Moscow. The Kremlin demanding the U.S. cut its staff by September 1st to the same number of Russian diplomats here. Russia also seizing a compound and warehouse occupied by U.S. diplomats. The timing of President Putin's fury will put pressure on President Trump, who, with a bill headed to his desk, will have to decide whether or not to take a hard line with Russia. The Trump presidency was supposed to mark a coming together between the two countries, but with Congress overwhelmingly passing a bill effectively tying Trump's hands on anything dealing with Russian sanctions,
the yeas are 98, the nays are 2. The bill is passed.
Trump will have to make the tough decision to either sign it or risk facing backlash with a veto.
The U.S. Navy may soon be swapping gunpowder for electrons, as its much-hyped electromagnetic railgun is ready for live fire testing in the field. The Navy has actually been working on an electromagnetic railgun for over a decade, which relies on a massive electrical pulse rather than chemical propellants to launch projectiles. The Office of Naval Research said that the current version is now capable of firing multiple shots in succession at low muzzle energy, but that they hope to increase power output to 32 megajoules. That's equivalent to 32 one-ton cars hitting at 100 miles per hour. Dr. Thomas Buettner, head of ONR's Naval Air Warfare and Weapons Department, called railguns and other directed energy weapons the future of maritime superiority. The Navy reportedly plans to equip 3 Zumwalt-class destroyers with railguns. However, the time frame of when that will happen is still up in the air.
The US-led coalition has officially broken off cooperation with a rebel organization in Syria.
The Shuhada al-Qaryatain, commonly referred to as the Shook, one of our partner forces there, unilaterally, without U.S. or coalition permission or coordination, conducted patrols outside of the agreed-upon de-escalation zone and engaged in activities not focused on fighting ISIS. The coalition only supports partner forces committed to fighting ISIS. The Shook have been important partners in the fight against ISIS in southern Syria. However, the coalition will no longer support their operation.
But not only that, the Pentagon also said that they will try to get all the weapons and equipment they have provided to that group back from the group, because they thought they gave the equipment to fight ISIS, and now the group apparently has different objectives. And this comes just a week after Trump decided to seize the CIA training and arming the rebels program in Syria, which was, again, a major move. This program itself has been very controversial. There have been times when CIA-backed rebels in Syria clashed with those supported and armed by the Pentagon. And also there have been cases when the weapons provided by the CIA to those rebel groups were stolen and found themselves in the hands of the terrorists. At the same time, Trump is refusing any suggestions he may be a fan of Bashar al-Assad's government, and this is what he said recently.
I'm not a fan of Assad, okay? I certainly think that what he's done to that country and to humanity is horrible.
So the hardline stance of Washington on Bashar al-Assad still stays, but there's definitely more cooperation now than before.
The Lebanese terror organization Hezbollah is making new gains on the Syrian-Lebanon border. The group has just struck a huge blow to jihadi fighters based around the Jurad al-Sal mountains and is now setting its sights on the Islamic State. And both Israeli and American leaders are aware that this is a growing threat to Israel. Hezbollah's latest skirmish with these al-Nusra jihad fighters has also given them critical new combat experience on an unfamiliar terrain.
حزب الله اعتاد في لبنان مع قتال مع إسرائيل أن يقاتل في الأشجار والغابات، وهذه أول مرة يقاتل حزب الله في بيئة جردية على ارتفاع 2450 متر.
This comes just 2 days after President Trump, standing alongside the Lebanese President Saad Hariri, denounced Hezbollah at the White House. Apparently, he didn't realize the man next to him was one of Hezbollah's biggest allies.
Hezbollah is a menace to the Lebanese state, the Lebanese people, and the entire region. The group continues to increase its military arsenal, which threatens to start yet another conflict with Israel.
A 16-year-old Palestinian was killed in central Gaza during clashes with the IDF that erupted along the border with Israel. At least 7 other Palestinian protesters were injured with live ammunition as tensions continue to mount over the Temple Mount crisis. The Red Crescent reporting that its staff have treated some 25 Palestinians across the West Bank. Meantime, only Muslim worshippers under the age of 50 were allowed today to enter the Holy Al-Aqsa compound. Restrictions had been placed on who could enter the holy site after days of violent outbreaks. Our Middle East correspondent Michael Pluchok is in Jerusalem. He filed this report.
I'm standing here at the Tribes Gate. That is one of the entries into the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound here in the old city of Jerusalem. And as you can see behind me, it appears that it's finally business as usual again in the old city. This comes after 2 weeks ago, a deadly attack took place in the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, which saw the killing of some 2 Israeli policemen. But 2 weeks in, it appears a resolution has finally been reached, and whereby on Friday, all limitations and restrictions, including age limitations, have been lifted by Israeli authorities. That happened despite minor clashes Friday that took place throughout the West Bank, northern Gaza Strip, and as well in eastern Jerusalem. But at the moment, as you can see, it is quite quiet and tranquil here in the old city of Jerusalem. The million-dollar question now is, how long will this quiet last?
Müslümanlara bir çağrıda bulunmak istiyorum. İmkanı olan herkes, bulduğu her fırsat, Peygamber Efendimizin aleyhissalatu vesselam tavsiyesine uyarak lütfen Kudüs'ü
A French airline plane was forced to make an emergency landing at Istanbul's Ataturk airport after being hit by hailstones during a freak storm. Heavy damage could be seen to the plane's nose, caused by the severe pounding of hailstones the size of golf balls. A torrential downpour also battered Istanbul, flooding roads with muddy water and bringing rush hour transport to a complete standstill. At least 2 people were injured in the heavy rains, which lasted around 20 minutes. Over 200 trees were uprooted, damaging cars, and a number of fires broke out, but were quickly extinguished. The city authorities said more than 7,000 people were mobilized to deal with the aftermath of the storm. At Taksim metro station, commuters stood by as waves of hail and rain cascaded down the stairs of the station, disrupting transport for the 2nd time this month.
Australia, Canada, and the United Kingdom have issued travel advisories for the Philippines. On July 24th, the countries each advised travelers to use a high degree of caution in some Philippine regions and avoid unnecessary travel in others. All 3 countries, however, advise against any travel in western and central Mindanao due to terrorist activity and high levels of crime. The United States updated similar travel advisories last week. The Philippine government declared martial law in Mindanao May 23rd in response to clashes between the military military and ISIS-aligned Maute militants. Congress renewed the order July 22nd to continue to allow the military to combat the threat. Congress has approved martial law in Mindanao through December 31st. The countries that issued advisories also warned travelers about threats of piracy and kidnapping in Philippine regions like the Sulu archipelago.
Tension continues to mount in Venezuela as the country prepares for a controversial vote that could rewrite its constitution. A new wave of violent clashes between Venezuelan security forces and demonstrators this week added to the growing death toll. As of Thursday, officials estimate more than 100 people had been killed in the months of political unrest. The surge in violence prompted the U.S. government to get some of its citizens out of Venezuela. The State Department issued a travel warning Thursday, citing the country's social unrest, violent crime, and pervasive food and medicine shortages. The same day, Venezuela's government announced a ban on protests that could disturb or affect the upcoming referendum, but opposition leaders say that won't stop their planned demonstrations against the vote. On Sunday, voters will elect representatives for a special assembly that has the power to rewrite the nation's constitution. Critics have accused President Nicolas Maduro of attempting to create a dictatorship.
A stabbing attack in a supermarket in the German city of Hamburg has left one person dead and 6 injured. The suspect is a 26-year-old man born in the United Arab Emirates. The Hamburg mayor has described him as a failed asylum seeker who could not be deported due to a lack of papers. The person killed in the stabbing has been identified as a 50-year-old German man. Peter Oliver has more on the story.
The suspect who's thought to have carried out this attack is in police custody. However, as of yet, police haven't spoken about any motive behind the attack. They have said that they're investigating all possible motives, including terror. Now, some eyewitnesses at the scene said that the man shouted Allah Akbar, God is great, in Arabic before carrying out his attack. However, the police spokesperson didn't comment further on that. What we have seen, though, is around the area where this took place, it's cordoned off by police, very heavily armed police presence at the scene there. We also understand that anti-terror units of the German police force are at the scene as well.
A Muslim feminist who founded an all-inclusive mosque in Germany has plans to open a similar place of worship in Britain. Seren Ateş, a Turkish-born lawyer and campaigner, visited London earlier this week, searching for a potential site. Billed as Britain's first liberal mosque, it'll be open to both men and women from all strands of Islam and will welcome LGBT Muslims. Women wearing the full face veil were initially banned from entering the one in Berlin, as Ateş believes the garments represent oppression. Conservative clerics are against the project, and Ateş says that she has received death threats. But I'm now joined by Seren Ateş. Seren, good evening to you. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. After opening one in Germany, why have you chosen the UK?
UK is one of the very important places where we can help to change the face of Islam. Especially in the last years, France and UK were the goal of Islamic terrorists. And also already in UK, especially in London, there are many groups working on reform Islam, and there are liberal groups like Inclusive Mosque. And so I came to see and to visit all the people and bring them together and networking together. I think the last attacks, the Islamic terrorist attacks in UK, shows us everywhere in Europe we have to start a new movement. And I started it here in Berlin, and I'm looking for partners in every capital in Europe.
Emmanuel Macron has had enough of seeing migrants sleeping rough on the streets of France. Here in Orléans, the French president attended a citizenship ceremony, which saw the leader propose a new way to stem the flow of migrants into Europe. At the event, in which several refugees were granted French nationality, Macron said he wanted to see emergency accommodation erected in certain hotspots where asylum seekers can be processed with dignity. He took to Twitter to express his unrelenting support for migrants, saying he would be uncompromising on the right to asylum. Those in danger, he said, must be welcomed. It is here in Libya that such centres, which the leader estimated would be ready by summer, are so desperately needed. He said there are currently as many as 1 million refugees stranded in the North African country, hoping to get into Europe. According to Macron, the creation of such hotspots would stop people not eligible for asylum from taking crazy risks, which he said was fueling the rise in people smugglers and thus funding terrorism. The United Nations says that more than 110,000 migrants from Northern Africa and the Middle East have made the perilous journey across the Mediterranean into Europe so far this year.
More than €200 million has been given to Greece to help it cope with the influx of tens of thousands of migrants and refugees. The assistance comes from the European Commission, with senior officials on a visit to Athens. The EU Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid and Crisis Management said the payment means that more than €400 million has now been allocated to Greece. A large part of the latest funding will go towards helping refugee families rent accommodation and to pay for the expense of moving out of refugee camps.
A hair salon in Michigan is making headlines this week after an employee posted a sign temporarily barring men from entering while a Muslim woman was inside without her hijab. According to Yahoo Beauty, the incident took place at a Smart Style salon inside a Walmart in Taylor, Michigan, a city located outside of Detroit. The News Herald, a Michigan-based newspaper, adds that store manager Erica Van Etten didn't find out about the sign until it was posted online, a full week after it happened.
A street protest over the death of a man in East London has turned violence this evening. Protesters gathered in Hackney Close to where Rashan Jermaine Charles was chased by police last week. He later died in hospital. Tonight, police have been pelted with objects, fires have been started and protesters have blocked roads.
Dozens of people have been injured after a commuter train ploughed into the buffers of a busy station in Barcelona. It happened during this morning's rush hour at Francia station in the centre of the northeastern Spanish city. Reports say the regional train simply failed to brake. It's not known why, and an investigation is underway. After conflicting numbers for those injured, authorities put the figure at 54, including the driver. One person was seriously hurt. More than 30 are described as lightly injured. Many were treated on the platform, with local roads blocked to traffic to allow emergency services to get through. One passenger in the first carriage said a lot of people standing on the packed train bumped into each other and fell to the ground at the moment of impact, which she described as like an earthquake. Our correspondent in the Catalan capital says Barcelona city centre woke up to chaos with this serious train accident. Most of the passengers were commuters coming here for a day's work.
For people with limited mobility, a pair of glasses might help them regain some autonomy. Engineers recently developed a new pair of glasses that can detect blinks, allowing users to do things like type or turn on lights without having to use their hands. The glasses carry sensors to sort out deliberate blinks from natural ones. With a computer, for example, a wearer can blink to control a cursor that moves through a pattern to type out a message. Eye-controlled computer interfaces have been used in the past to assist those with limited mobility. One team of engineers developed a wheelchair controlled by eye movements. Another created an eye-controlled virtual keyboard. But past systems weren't as reliable for detecting blinks. Sometimes they would unintentionally read other facial motions as triggers to perform a certain task. Interfaces are improving, though. The team hopes their design will inspire future applications for assistive technology, like touch or pressure-activated devices.
Researchers in Oregon made history this week as the first U.S. scientists to genetically modify human embryos. The team is led by Shukrat Mitalapov of Oregon Health and Science University. Mitalapov's work still marks a milestone for the United States, only the second country to successfully edit human embryos after China. Scientific, ethical, and legal questions have plagued the process since Louise Joy Brown, world's first test tube baby conceived via in vitro fertilization, was born 39 years ago this week.
So we've had some flooding issues in the Mid-Atlantic and the South through Friday, and it started off on early Friday in the morning in Perry County, Tennessee. 2 people were rescued from flash flooding. You can see that here. We had a couple different reports of flooding in parts of northern Mississippi, southern Tennessee, southwestern Tennessee especially. And then, of course, we've had all these issues in the Mid-Atlantic. A lot of these blue dots that you see down in the South and also in the Mid-Atlantic are reports of flooding issues that we've had. These guys down in the far southeast, those are wind damage reports. But West Virginia was another spot where we had issues. I used to live in Huntington. I know that exact spot. We've had some road closures there. In D.C., hundreds of flights were delayed. The baseball game between the Nationals and the Rockies was canceled. And in Maryland, we've had a lot of road closures in different parts of the state. Actually, Baltimore as of late as well.
Heavy rains battered parts of the Philippines Thursday, July 27th, due to southwest monsoon enhanced by a severe tropical storm. The country's Weather Bureau said this year's 7th cyclone, Noru, locally known as Goryo, has intensified into a severe tropical storm. Goryo is not expected to make landfall, but Batanes in northern Luzon is now placed under warning signal number 1. Western Luzon has been dammed with moderate to occasional heavy rains. The rest of Luzon and parts of the Visayas region have been affected as well. Many roads were impassable due to persisting floods. Footage by GMA News show floods. Some parts of Quezon City are waist deep. The weather has prompted dozens of cities and provinces to suspend classes in all levels of public and private schools. Government work in the Supreme Court and Malacanang Palace was also suspended. The Weather Bureau forecasts Goryo to leave the Philippine area of responsibility on Sunday or Monday.
According to the local officials, the downpours have left 8 dead and 1 missing. About 195,000 people were affected and 71,000 residents transferred. Cedar and Zhou are the 2 counties most affected. Emergency work is underway. A large number of armed police officers and soldiers are stepping up relief efforts.
2-year-old Bella Shore is getting around in ways her parents never thought possible.
Uh-oh, now you're gonna get me?
Bella's homemade wheelchair is giving her mobility for the first time.
She's just happy to be, free to do what she wants. Turn around, Bella.
Bella was born with spina bifida, a birth defect of the spine that has left her with no feeling below her knees.
Everywhere we went, we had to carry her or put her in a stroller.
Come on in.
That's when Bella's great-uncle got involved. Using a plan he found online, he constructed a wheelchair using a bumbo-like seat for kids, some tires, and a wooden board.
As we saw her maneuverability and her freedom coming out of her captive body, playing with the other kids, we decided that we would try to make chairs for other children.
They spread the word on Facebook, calling the chairs Bella's Boombas, and it took off. In just a few months, they've received almost 200 orders. They've shipped wheelchairs to children in 40 states and as far away as the Philippines. They don't charge for the Boombas. Special needs families only pay the shipping, a fraction of what it would cost to purchase a typical wheelchair. The smiles they see from children around the world make it all worth it.
Be able to be independent, play with their other siblings, go outside and play. It's just amazing.
Go, baby, go.
They say it's showing Bella there's nothing that can stop her. Kenneth Craig, CBS News, Webster, New York.
I'm gonna get you. Here I come.